Imagine this. You are playing game like League of Legends or Pokemon. Suddenly, you find your parents standing at the door. They are looking at you with totally despair. They are thinking, oh my god, my child is ruined. He is addicted to game and will never go to college. Just then, they see an ad on TV. It says there is a treatment center. If you send your child there, they will come out super obedient. They will never touch game again. They will study like crazy and get into a good college. Parents think, wow, does such amazing place really exist? I just pay some money and get a good obedient and a good child? Quickly, take my money now. It sounds like a ridiculous fantasy, but in China, this place actually exists. They are called obedient kid factories. But these factories do not use love to change you. They use force, fear, and electrical shock to train you. To understand how these factories start, we must talk about a very famous man in China. His name is Yang Yongxin. In early 2000s, a public hospital psychiatrist, Yang Yongxin, noticed something very important. He saw that the Chinese parents really want their children to be absolutely obedient. They want good kids who just put their head down and study hard. But these parents had no patience to guide their kids slowly, and they argue with their kids all the time. This gave Yang an idea to open a place to specially train kids for parents. At that time, video game becomes the perfect bad guy. Computer and the internet was just getting popular in China, and many kids experience this new world for the first time. Many students get addicted to online game and stop studying. Mainstream media also increased the fear. They even call video game electronic heroin, which made parents completely terrified. Parents blame game for all family problems and bad grades. They thought it is all because of game that my child cannot study well. Even normal online cheating with classmates was seen by parents as a solely perform of internet addictions. With this background, in January 2006, Yang Yongxin opened an internet addiction treatment center. He said that playing game or surfing the internet all day was an internet addiction, and that it was a disease just like drug addiction, and this kid need to be locked out and treated. If we use his standard for back then, almost all normal people today who use the internet for fun, work, or study would be called addicts. Next, Yang started to build his image as a great expert. He published papers, wrote books, and went on TV. He made himself look like savior fighting against the internet drug. He made a whole set of rules to cure internet addiction, and even invented some fake medicine saying kids would never want to use the internet after eating them. But his most famous method was the electric shock therapy. He called it brain-waking treatment. He said that the low-frequency electric shock will make the brain hack the internet, and he promised parents it was very safe and harmless. With all this fake professional image, he became a top expert in treating internet addiction. When everything was ready, Yang started to take a lot of teenagers. Parents at that time saw his paper, saw him on TV, and saw he was in a really hospital. They saw he was really professional. Seeing the expert say kids no listening and playing game was a disease, then the disease must be cured by a professional. Seeing he as a savior, desperate parents dragged their kids away from the computer and pushed them into a Yang's treatment center. When the kids arrived, Yang would separate them from their parents first. He explained to the parents, the main way to cure the addiction is electric shock, but the goal is just to connect the internet with fear in the brain. He promised again and again that it would not hurt the brain, and it was not painful at all, saying it just feels like a mosquito bite. At the same time, he promised to use military-style management to teach the kids discipline, making them very obedient to their parents. Because the parents naturally trust daughter and public hospital, they have almost no doubt. They pay a lot of money very happily and just went home to wait for their perfectly fit kids. However, what the kid actually faced was a different kind of torload. Every new kid was taken to room 13. This was the electric shock room, also called the behavior correction room. Inside the center, Yang's helper would tie the kid to a chair. They put electric pad on their hands. The machine they used was called the X2A. This machine was actually made for very crazy and violent older mental patients. It was absolutely not for children. The moment the power was turned on, the kid would shake violently. Their eyes would see only white light. It was so painful they could not even scream, because their mouths were covered. This was to stop them from beating their tongues, and also to stop parents outside from hearing the screams. There were even oxygen tanks ready in the room, just in case a kid stopped breathing from the shaking pain. Yang called this brainwashing. He would shock the kid again and again, asking, "Do you have internet addiction? Do you know you are wrong?" He would not stop until the kid broke down, beg pharmacy, and admit they were sick. When kids come out of their room, their legs were shaking so much, they couldn't even stand up. At this point, the kids were extremely scared. They cried, admit their mistake, and begged to go home, but the parents had already paid the money, so the kid could only stay. Once inside the center, kids have to obey Yang completely. Yang made 186 very strict rules to control everything the kids did. For example, you cannot close the door when you're using the toilet. You cannot look too happy when you leave the center. You cannot tell your parents you want to go home. Even looking at each other, talking privately, or eating too fast was breaking the rules. If anyone broke a rule, they get a recorder. The punishment for a recorder was electric shock. Even worse, Yang punished everyone together. Sometimes, if one person broke a rule, the whole group get shocked. This made the kids turn against each other. Yang also encouraged kids to report on each other. If you report your classmate, you could cancel your own record and get fewer shock. The whole center became a cage full of fear and guessing. It slowly destroys the kids' personalities, trust, and social skills. Soon after, during the public showcase class, parents were so happy to see the result. Their rebellious teenager cried and admitted playing game was a huge mistake. They thanked their parents for sending them here and promised to never go online again. So the parents were deeply thankful to Yang Yongxin. His center was even praised by the media as a great example. He even won an award for protecting teenagers because of his outstanding work in treating internet addiction. It seemed like Yang Yongxin really trained a group of good kids who listened to their parents. But all of this was just a fake show of obedience, as out by the kids under extremely toiled. They had only one goal: to leave this internet addiction treatment center. After their treatment ended, and they went back home, some kids lived in fear for a long time. They didn't know dare fight with their parents and to other people. They looked like very good and obedient kids, but they never trust their family again. They suppressed their true feelings for a long time and lost the ability to express their emotions. When they grew up, they tried to stay as far away from their family as possible. But the other group of kids was different. After being home for a while, their suppressed emotions finally exploded. They started playing games again and refused to be controlled. The fights between parents and kids became even worse than before. Many parents saw the treatment had failed and the kids were not fixed well, so they sent their kids back to the center for a second time or even many times. But because of the long-term abuse, these kids were extremely terrified of being sent back. Some kids clearly say they would do anything to avoid going back, but the parents don't believe a word they say. They still found ways to catch them and send them back to the treatment center. The parents believe they could not educate the kid anymore, and only Dr. Yang could make their kids listen. For Yang Yongxin, these kids who were sent back a second time ruined his reputation, so they were treated even worse, getting electric shock every single day. There was a really news report about a teenager named Wang Songling. Tragically, he took an extreme path and lost his life just because he refused to send back to the center again. In 2009, a journalist ran a deep story exploring Yang Yongxin electric shock therapy. People on the internet were incredibly angry and feel deeply sad for the kid, but the nightmare didn't end there. When more reporters went there to check, the parent actually framed them. They tried to stop the interview and even beat the reporter up and injured them. Many parents strongly believe that only Yang Yongxin could make their kids obedient. They saw the reporters who explored the truth as enemies who were destroying their kids' future. By this time, the parents already knew about the violent method in the treatment center, but they still want to send their kids inside. This is because in China, using violence as a way of education is actually very common. Most parents think it is totally normal to be strict with kids and use violent force to correct their behavior. Most of the time, parents would rather give their kids a beating than sit down and have a good talk with them. There was once a survey done with the parents and kids at the Internet Addiction Center. Here are some of the questions they asked. They were asked if the parents had even used violence on the kids. Almost all the parents raised their hands. Almost all the kids also raised their hands to show they have suffered from violence. They were also asked if the parents didn't know how to communicate with their kids. Almost all the parents raised their hands again. Finally, they asked the kids if they had completely lost the will to life. Most of the kids raised their hands again. Because of this parents' crazy protection, this terrifying center stayed open for another 10 years. It was not until 2019, under huge pressure from the populace, that the center was finally closed completely. According to report, even though Yang Yongxin's method caused huge anger in society, he never got any criminal punishment. The kid from back then could only joke about him online, calling him the Lord of Lightning. As people understand the internet much better now, these obvious internet addiction schools are disappearing. It sounds like a story where the world becomes a better place, but is story really over? No, it is not. This treatment center just changed their mask. They turned into summer camps, quality school, 10 discipline school, or behavior correction center. Their slogans changed to making kids listen to parents or helping kids correct bad habits. They sell the illusion that they can fix any family issue and turn any troubled kids into perfect child. Many parents still send their kids to this place, and this place still promise they will never treat kids violently. But every year, there is still news coming out. Many kids suffer severe injuries from beating. This industry never disappeared. It just changed its name and continued to serve these parents. Because what really ruins a child is never the game or the internet. It is lazy and bad family education, crazy anxiety for good grade, and parents who want to run away from their responsibility. These so-called obedient kid factories are never meant to fix kid bad habits. They only exist to satisfy the parent desire for control. As long as the twist idea for kids must be absolutely obedient still exists, and as long as parents don't want to actually do the hard work of teaching, but just want to pay some money to buy a ready-made obedient kid, these obedient kid factories will always have a market, and will keep running forever.